Picture a freezing midnight in November, 1811.
Right, the classic Luddite rebellion.
Exactly. A clandestine group of English textile workers, their faces completely blackened with coal dust, are breaking into a Nottinghamshire factory.
And they aren't there to negotiate, right?
Oh no, they are carrying massive sledgehammers. And their target isn't a person, and it's not the factory owner's fault. It is a machine.
A mechanized loom.
Yeah, a mechanized loom. They spend the next hour violently smashing the iron and wood to splinters, just completely destroying the very technology that was supposed to represent the pinnacle of industrial progress.
Such a visceral image.
Right. Now, I want you to flash forward to 2 o'clock in the morning, last Tuesday. A highly educated 35-year-old professional is lying in bed.
Bathed in the blue light of a smartphone.
Sweating slightly, heart racing, forcibly pressing the screen to permanently delete their social media apps.
I mean, the historical gap between those two events spans centuries, obviously, but the underlying psychological drive, it's basically identical.
That's exactly it.
We are looking at human beings violently attempting to reclaim their autonomy from a piece of technology that has entirely compromised their environment. It's a desperate attempt to break a cycle.
And the language we use today to describe our relationship with the digital world, it hasn't emerged in a vacuum.
Not at all. It is deeply coded with the vocabulary of physical entrapment, severe chemical addiction, and, like you said, literal warfare.
And that's the core of what we are dissecting today on this deep dive. We're looking at a specific set of advanced idioms and metaphors that native English speakers use to articulate the reality of the 21st century digital landscape.
Because if you're listening to this right now, you are utilizing the very thing we're talking about, modern technology.
Yeah, whether you're listening on a smartphone, a laptop, or one of those smart speakers in your kitchen, technology is ubiquitous. It's an inescapable truth of modern life.
It really is. I mean, you can travel to the most remote, beautiful, off-the-beaten-path locations on Earth, and what do you see? People staring down at their phones.
It's highly ironic. But our mission today is based on excerpts from this really fascinating advanced English language learning guide. It's a C2 level guide titled Mastering Modern English, Advanced Vocabulary for the Digital Age.
Right, and we aren't just here to learn vocabulary words like it's a textbook.
No, we are decoding the very specific, vivid expressions native speakers use to navigate, survive, and honestly, sometimes try to escape this digital landscape.
We want to equip you to describe your own digital habits with native-level sophistication.
Because if you truly analyze terms like doom scrolling or going off the grid or being glued to the screen, you realize pretty quickly we aren't talking about tools anymore.
We are talking about survival mechanics.
Exactly. So let's move into how we fundamentally describe this impact. Because it's a mixture of massive benefits and really severe drawbacks, right?
Yeah, we have to start with the foundational metaphor that frames this entire era.
The double-edged sword.
Right. We recognize the massive, unprecedented benefits of infinite information and instant global connection, but we also feel the corresponding cognitive degradation. And the idiom that perfectly encapsulates this tension is the double-edged sword.
Let's break down that imagery for a second.
Yeah.
Because it's a C2 level metaphor, but the literal physics of it are so important.
Imagine a literal sword, but it's sharpened on both the front and the back.
Yeah.
Historically, if you wield a blade sharpened on both sides, you have a highly lethal weapon. It slices through the enemy effortlessly on the forward swing.
But the physics of combat dictate that if your momentum is even slightly off.
Exactly. The backswing will accidentally slice open your own arm in the process.
Oh, wow. So the danger is just completely baked into the utility.
You cannot access the power without absorbing the risk. It's impossible.
Right, like an artifact in a fantasy story.
Yeah.
A magical sword that grants the user immense power, but every time you swing it, it slowly drains your life force.
That's a perfect analogy, and the source text gives us a great example with artificial intelligence.
Oh, AI is the ultimate double-edged sword right now.
Completely. Think about it in the modern economic sector. You deploy an AI that massively increases your efficiency. That's the forward swing, right?
Yeah, it processes data in seconds.
But it simultaneously threatens jobs. That's the backswing. The sword cuts the obstacle, and then it cuts the wielder.
And we see this with smartphones, too. It connects you to the entire world. You have the whole globe in your pocket, but it actively destroys your attention span.
Which brings us to the physical manifestation of this paradox, being glued to the screen.
I love this idiom because there is obviously no physical glue involved.
Right. No one is actually applying adhesive to your face.
But the idiomatic meaning implies this mesmerized fixation where a person just cannot look away.
It's a complete physical capture. The source material brings up that classic anecdote, the parent complaining about teenagers at the dinner table.
Oh, yeah. They are so fixated on their phones that they don't even notice someone walking into the room.
They're literally glued to the screen. Their visual and cognitive focus is so intensely hijacked that the physical room almost ceases to exist for them.
So I want you, the listener, to think about your own day for a second. When does your screen stop being a tool and start acting like that metaphorical glue?
It's a great question because once we establish that physical state of being glued, we have to ask what actually happens next. What exactly are we doing when we can't look away?
Right. And this brings us to navigating the dark and the weird, the late night screen habits.
The content we consume when we are trapped there.
Let's talk about what I consider the defining linguistic invention of the last decade. Doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling. It is such a brilliant modern invention. Linguistically speaking, it's what we call a portmanteau.
A portmanteau. That's when you blend the sounds and meanings of two different words together, right?
Exactly. Here we are combining doom, meaning death or terrible destruction, with scrolling.
The physical act of moving a finger down a phone screen.
Right, so you get doom scrolling.
Paint that picture for us. What does doom scrolling actually look like in practice?
Well, it's the classic 11 p.m. trap. You open up Twitter or a news app just to check what's going on.
Just a quick check before bed.
Right, just a quick check. And an hour later, you are still obsessively reading about global disasters.
Just scrolling through terrible news.
And you're feeling terrible anxiety. It completely ruins your sleep.
Now, I'm going to push back on this slightly. Is doom scrolling really a new phenomenon?
What do you mean?
Well, humans have always been drawn to bad news, right? Is doom scrolling really new, or is it just the modern equivalent of reading the newspaper's tragedy section?
It's a fair point. The human appetite for bad news isn't new, but the architecture of the delivery system is what makes this a unique modern trap.
Because a newspaper actually ends.
Exactly. A newspaper has physical boundaries.
Yeah.
You reach the end of the page and you have to stop. Your brain registers the threat, processes it, and then the stimulus is gone.
But with a social media feed?
There is no physical end. It's an infinite scroll. You just keep pulling down and it keeps generating more doom. You are trapped in that cycle.
So doom scrolling is driven by anxiety. But it's not always threat detection that traps us, right? Sometimes it's a totally different feeling.
Yeah, sometimes we fall down a rabbit hole.
Going down a rabbit hole. This is such a great contrast to doom scrolling. Let's trace this idiom back because it has classic English literature roots.
It comes straight out of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Right. Alice follows the white rabbit.
She falls it down a literal hole in the ground and she falls into this strange, chaotic, bizarre world.
And that maps perfectly onto modern internet culture.
It really does. You start with something completely innocent. The source text has a highly relatable example of this.
Oh, the bread baking one.
Yeah. You start by watching a simple YouTube video on how to bake bread.
Very productive. Very normal.
Very normal. But 3 hours later...
you end up watching a documentary on the history of Egyptian wheat farming.
Exactly. Or you go to Wikipedia just to find an actor's name.
Just one quick fact check.
Right, and suddenly it's 2 a.m. and you are reading a biography of their great-grandfather in the 1800s, or you're diving deep into unsolved mysteries.
It's not driven by anxiety like doom scrolling. It's driven by curiosity.
It's a lateral slide through human knowledge. You're just drifting on these currents of algorithmic association.
So we have to ask you again, are you disciplined with your screen time, or are you a victim of the late-night doom scroll? What was the last rabbit hole you fell down?
It's so easy to get caught because we have to remember we don't fall into these traps accidentally.
Right, there are external forces keeping us glued.
The tech companies, they're constantly pushing the next big thing, and the language they use to sell it to us is fascinating.
Let's pivot to the tech industry's sales pitch versus practical reality.
Yeah.
Because we are constantly sold devices that use these elite C2 adjectives.
Words like cutting edge and state-of-the-art.
Let's analyze those. What do they actually represent in this context?
Well, cutting edge and state-of-the-art represent the absolute highest level of development, the newest tech available worldwide.
Like a laptop with a cutting-edge processor. Or a cutting-edge display.
Or a hospital getting a state-of-the-art surgical robot. It invokes this imagery of exploring uncharted territory. The blade is literally cutting the edge of progress.
It makes you feel like if you don't have it, you're falling behind.
It creates a synthetic urgency to buy the newest thing.
But I want to contrast This high-tech language with a delightfully historical idiom that the source text brings up.
Bells and whistles.
Bells and whistles. I love this one so much. Where does this actually come from?
It has a great evocative origin. It comes from old steam trains.
Literal steam trains.
Yeah. Engineers would utilize loud, flashy noises, literal bells, and literal steam whistles to impress onlookers and passengers.
Do they actually help the train move?
Not at all. They were non-essential features. They just made the product look fancier to buyers.
Oh, wow. So they consumed steam pressure, but contributed nothing to the core utility of the train.
Exactly. And we apply this to modern tech all the time.
So an example from the text is buying a basic car.
Right. You might want a reliable vehicle, but you don't want all the bells and whistles. You don't need a heated steering wheel or an automatic massage seat.
Or a software package. You just need a basic program without the bells and whistles.
But the tech industry loves to disguise bells and whistles as state-of-the-art necessities.
Which raises a really skeptical question. Are we being tricked? Are we being sold these features that we don't actually need?
That's where the counter philosophy comes in. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Don't reinvent the wheel. There's a profound simplicity to this phrase.
Because the wheel is already perfect. It literally cannot be made better.
Right. You can't make an octagonal wheel and expect it to roll better.
Exactly. So wasting massive amounts of time creating a new solution when a perfectly good one exists is a total trap.
So like a software engineer wanting to rewrite a perfectly working app from scratch.
Yes, or a company replacing an old filing system that works just fine with some incredibly complex new system. They are reinventing the wheel.
It's like a Swiss Army knife. A knife with a blade and a screwdriver is great. But eventually, if you add too many tools, a saw, a magnifying glass, a corkscrew,
the knife just becomes impossible to hold.
Right. The bells and whistles actively degrade the core utility.
And the consequence of that manufactured progress is user exhaustion. We get overwhelmed by these cutting-edge devices.
Which connects directly to the resistance. Part 4 of our deep dive.
Yeah.
The escape and the cure.
Because if tech is a double-edged sword and it's exhausting us, how do we put the sword down?
How do we reject it all? Let's dive deep into a historical C2 noun. Luddite.
Luddite. We mentioned the Nottingham weavers at the start of the show.
The 19th century English textile workers.
Right. The original Luddites were violently protesting the Industrial Revolution machinery. They feared the mechanized looms would steal their jobs.
But contrast that intense violent history with its modern usage. It's so playful now.
It's almost mocking. You tease a grandfather who refuses to learn how to send a text message, and you call him a Luddite.
Or someone who fears smart home devices. They don't want a smart speaker in their kitchen.
Right. It's become family banter.
It's such an ironic evolution. A term born of violent revolution has softened into a joke about your uncle who won't upgrade his flip phone.
But the underlying desire is real. People want methods of escape. They want to pull the plug.
Pull the plug. We've discussed this phrase before in the context of burnout. Right. Intentionally stopping an activity.
Yeah, taking the power source away. But it transitions into a much more extreme idiom. Going off the grid.
Going off the grid. What is the grid literally?
The grid is the literal network of electricity and telecommunications. Power lines, cell towers, fiber optics.
To be on the grid is to be connected to all of it.
So going off the grid means disconnecting entirely. No internet, no cell service, no social media.
And the text frames this in a really fascinating way. It calls it the ultimate luxury for modern professionals.
It is. Think about the source example. Renting a mountain cabin for a honeymoon, specifically to ensure there are 0 emails for a week.
You are paying a premium just to be unreachable. Silence and disconnection are a luxury now.
But we have to address the severe difficulty of this escape, because it's not easy to just turn it all off.
No, it's incredibly hard. Which brings us to the idiom, to quit cold turkey.
To quit cold turkey. Traditionally, this phrase was reserved for severe substance addictions.
Like quitting smoking or drinking.
Exactly. It means abruptly stopping an addiction all at once, rather than slowly reducing it over time.
But now we apply it seamlessly to digital behavior.
Yeah, deleting Instagram completely, or selling a video game console to stop a 4-hour-a-day habit.
You aren't tapering down your usage, you're quitting cold turkey.
But the withdrawals are real. When you quit a digital addiction cold turkey, your brain craves that dopamine.
So I have to ask you, could you actually survive going off the grid? Or would the withdrawal force you to realize that you just can't quit cold turkey?
It's a tough question to answer, honestly.
It really is. We've taken quite a journey today, synthesizing all these concepts. We started from the physical trap of being glued to the screen,
We looked at falling down the dark rabbit holes of doom scrolling.
navigating the bells and whistles of corporate tech sales.
And finally, contemplating the extreme luxury of going completely off the grid.
Mastering these idioms gives you the sophistication of a native speaker when discussing all these 21st century nuances. But before we wrap up, we have a challenge for you, directly from the source text.
What was the last internet rabbit hole that you went down? What fascinating topic were you randomly researching at midnight?
We really encourage you to actively use this vocabulary in your own life. Start noticing when a new app is just adding bells and whistles. Start noticing when you are doom scrolling.
Awareness is the first step.
Absolutely. But we want to end with a lingering philosophical question for you to ponder. Something that builds on the text, but goes just one step further.
Think about the idioms we just spent an hour discussing.
The language we use to describe our relationship with technology heavily borrows from the language of severe addiction
Quitting cold turkey. Withdrawals.
and violent historical rebellion. Luddite. A double-edged sword.
If our language is a mirror of our subconscious, what does it say about our true perception of these devices?
These devices that we claim we cannot live without. Are we users of technology or are we its captives?
It's a heavy thought.
It is. Leave that to mull over until the next deep dive.
Right now, you are likely holding a sterile piece of glass.
Yes.
Glass, metal, and silicon in your hand. Or maybe you're sitting in front of a really sleek, glowing monitor.
Yeah, totally.
You tap a screen, you hit send, and it just feels like this incredibly modern, clean, almost futuristic interaction.
It feels like magic, honestly.
Right, it feels like magic, but the moment you actually stop to listen to the words coming out of our mouths to describe this reality, I mean, that futuristic illusion completely shatters.
Oh, absolutely. It falls apart.
Suddenly, you aren't in a digital utopia at all. You are running from a biological plague, or you're standing in the middle of a brutal medieval battlefield, and you're stumbling blindly through an acoustic trap designed to isolate you.
It really is the ultimate hidden linguistic reality of our time. I mean, we have built the most complex artificial networks in human history, yet we still rely on this ancient, highly primal language to make sense of them.
Exactly. So welcome to the deep dive. We are taking a highly tailored journey alongside you today, stepping right through the looking glass of our modern internet.
Yeah, we all spend, hours every single day navigating this invisible landscape.
We do, but if you don't understand the language that frames your reality, you don't actually understand the system you are living inside.
That's the real danger right there.
It is. So we are going to decode the specific, highly descriptive C2 level idioms we use to navigate the extremes of the internet, from the explosion of sudden online fame to the psychological traps built into social media, all the way to the dark underworld of digital deception.
And we'll even get into the very colorful, very physical way we talk about our hardware when it finally gives up and dies.
Right. And the goal here is to shortcut you to a deeper understanding of the space you inhabit every day. By decoding the origins and the profound psychological implications of these specific phrases, we are mapping out the sociological realities of the 21st century internet.
Because the language we use isn't accidental.
Yeah.
It reveals the exact architecture of the system.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we want to truly understand that architecture, we really have to start at the foundation.
We have to look at the primary driving force behind the attention economy.
Exactly, which is the pursuit of sudden, massive internet exposure. The primary phrase we use for this phenomenon is something, everyone hears constantly. We say a piece of content or a person has going viral.
Right, going viral.
So a funny video of a cat is posted online, and by the next morning, it has 10 million views, right? It's shared rapidly by millions of people across social media. But looking at the literal origin of this phrase creates a massive cognitive dissonance.
It really does. It pulls us straight out of a Silicon Valley boardroom and drops us into a virology lab.
Exactly that. We're talking about a biological virus. An infectious agent that forcefully hijacks a host cell to replicate itself.
Spreading rapidly from person to person.
Right, and historically causing devastating plagues. I look at this and I have to marvel at the dark, twisted irony of human culture. I mean, how did we take a terrifying, uncontrollable biological threat and completely flip the script?
We turned it into the ultimate modern compliment.
Yes. It's the absolute peak of success for content creators now.
What's fascinating here is how it speaks to how we subconsciously view the mechanics of the internet. A biological virus is the perfect analogy, really, because it operates on a model of exponential, uncontrollable replication.
It doesn't ask for permission.
Exactly. Think about how an actual biological pathogen works. It doesn't ask the host for permission to enter. It simply bypasses the host's natural defenses, hijacks the internal machinery, and forces the host to produce more copies of the virus.
So one infected cell produces 100.
Yep, one infected person sneezes and infects 5 people on a train, who then infect 20 others. That is the exact mathematical architecture of social media sharing.
So when that cat video goes viral, I mean, it is quite literally infecting the digital feeds of the population.
It's hijacking the algorithmic machinery of the platform.
And more importantly, it bypasses the traditional gatekeepers,
Yes.
just as a real virus bypasses the immune system. Like, historically, if you wanted 10 million people to see something, you needed a television network.
Or a massive marketing budget or a global publishing house. You needed the gatekeepers to broadcast your message.
Right, but a digital virus doesn't rely on a central broadcaster. The network itself is the population. The host is the user.
And the mechanism of infection is the share button.
That is just wild. It reframes the entire experience of being a user. You aren't just casually viewing content, you know. You are an active carrier of a cultural pathogen.
Which is why, once something truly goes viral, multiplying across millions of smartphones globally overnight, it becomes an unstoppable force.
You cannot put a virus back in the box once the population is infected.
No, you can't. It takes on a life entirely independent of the original creator.
And that uncontrollable nature naturally leads us to the other major idiom we use for global internet fame. If going viral represents a biological cellular scale of replication, this next concept is a forceful global takeover.
It's a huge shift in scale.
Huge. So when a person, a new idea, or a product captures the attention of the entire world and achieves sudden dominance, we use a different phrase, like a new artificial intelligence app becoming wildly successful overnight.
Right, we say it has taken the internet by storm.
Yes, taken the internet by storm. It is a dramatic shift in imagery, moving from the microscopic to the militaristic.
The military origin of this phrase is what really grounds it for me. It comes from siege warfare.
Siege warfare, exactly. Specifically, the act of capturing an entrenched fortress through a sudden, overwhelming, and usually violent attack.
You don't lay siege to the castle and wait them out for months.
No, you breach the walls with overwhelming force. But applying this to our modern digital lives makes me question our entire relationship with the content we consume. I mean, does this imply that the internet is fundamentally a hostile environment?
It's an aggressive metaphor.
Right. Are these trends and viral moments essentially an aggressive act against our attention spans?
I think we have to accept that they are. If we look at the intersection of these two concepts, the biological virus and the military siege, the internet stops looking like a library of information.
It totally does.
It starts looking like an active battlefield for human attention.
Where the user is the fortress under attack.
Exactly. The user, your focus, your daily routine, that is the territory being conquered. When that new AI app takes the tech world by storm, it does not quietly submit itself for your thoughtful consideration.
It absolutely invades your awareness.
It dominates your news feed. It hijacks the conversations you have with your friends. It demands immediate engagement. It is a highly coordinated, overwhelming assault on your cognitive bandwidth.
It's the inescapable nature of surround sound culture. You are besieged by the cultural moment, whether you want to participate or not.
And society rewards the conquerors. We celebrate the platforms and the creators who successfully take our attention by storm because it represents massive financial and social success.
But from the perspective of the user, the fortress, it means we live in a state of constant chaotic bombardment.
We are continually being infected and conquered by these sudden massive waves of information.
That paints a rather exhausting picture of logging online every day. We assume we are in control of our scrolling, but we are actually just navigating the fallout of a continuous cultural siege.
It is exhausting when you really frame it that way.
But let's shift the focus here, because what happens after the fortress is captured? Virality and taking the world by storm, those concepts represent a collective public experience.
Right. Everyone is looking at the same viral video.
Wow.
Everyone is talking about the same new app.
They represent the rare moments of a unified digital monoculture. But the actual day-to-day reality of the internet isn't a shared public square at all.
Not at all.
The underlying architecture, the algorithms that govern our feeds, they are not designed to blast the same information to the global population. They are engineered to do the exact opposite.
They're built to isolate us.
Right. Which brings us from the chaotic public battlefield of viral fame straight into the meticulously designed, enclosed psychological traps built for the individual.
The architecture of isolation.
Yes, the architecture of isolation. We use a deeply sociological term to describe this environment. We call it the echo chamber.
A classic term, but perfectly applied here.
If we look at the literal physical reality of an echo chamber, it is an acoustic space. It's a highly enclosed room where sound waves have nowhere to escape, so they simply bounce off the walls, repeating the exact same noise back to the source over and over again.
And figuratively, when we apply this to the digital world, an echo chamber is a social media feed or a network where a person only encounters information, news, and opinions that perfectly reflect and reinforce their own pre-existing beliefs.
Every alternative idea, every piece of friction is entirely blocked out.
The physics of sound becomes the perfect map for the psychology of validation.
I love that phrasing. I always imagine it like standing at the very bottom of a deep, dark, incredibly narrow canyon. You shout your own opinions out into the darkness, and you hear this massive, booming voice roaring back at you.
Agreeing with every single word you just said.
Exactly. And because you are trapped in that canyon, you mistakenly believe that the entire world agrees with you, simply because you are hearing the amplified reflection of your own voice bouncing off the algorithmic walls.
You genuinely believe you are standing in a stadium of millions of cheering supporters.
When in reality, you are entirely alone.
We have to analyze the mechanism driving that isolation, because the psychological danger of living inside that canyon is immense. These algorithmic echo chambers are not natural sociological phenomena.
They do not happen by accident.
Exactly. They are deliberately engineered systems designed with one overriding metric of success, and that is user retention. They exist solely to keep you clicking and scrolling.
Because your time on the platform translates directly into ad revenue. The algorithm's job isn't to inform you, its job is to harvest your attention.
And to harvest your attention, the algorithm exploits human psychology. Fundamentally, humans possess a deep-seated desire for validation. We deeply enjoy the sensation of being right.
It feels good to be right.
It does. Encountering information that proves our worldview is correct releases dopamine. It feels safe. So the mathematical models behind the feed learn your preferences with terrifying speed.
It notes that you linger on a specific political viewpoint, or you like a particular cultural stance.
And it immediately begins constructing walls around you. It systematically sanitizes your feed of anything that might cause intellectual friction or disagreement.
It effectively amputates the opposing viewpoint from your digital reality.
And the long-term consequence is the atrophy of critical thinking. If you are never forced to encounter friction, if your ideas are never challenged by a coherent counter-argument, your ability to synthesize complex information just degrades.
You become radicalized in your own correctness.
You lose the ability to comprehend how anyone could possibly disagree with you. Because, according to the mathematical universe constructed specifically for your screen, literally everyone agrees with you.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because we pair the concept of the echo chamber with the slightly different, deeply personal state of intellectual isolation, the filter bubble.
Ah, yes. The filter bubble shifts the focus from the social feed to the search engine.
Exactly. It's the isolation that results from personalized search algorithms filtering out the reality you disagree with. But the most striking element of the filter bubble is how we describe the psychological state of being trapped inside one.
The source material is very specific about this.
Yes, it is characterized as a state that is comfortable but ignorant.
Comfortable but ignorant.
That phrasing is a massive indictment of human nature. It demands the question, why do human beings so desperately crave this comfortable ignorance, even when it detaches us from reality?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it comes down to the management of cognitive load.
Cognitive load. Okay, break that down for me.
Well, the physical offline world is incredibly messy. Human society is deeply complex, riddled with contradictions, gray areas, and nuanced debates that do not offer easy binary solutions.
Nothing is black and white.
Exactly. Attempting to understand a complex geopolitical conflict or a nuanced social issue requires significant mental energy. It requires empathy.
It's exhausting work.
It requires the exhausting work of stepping completely outside of your own lived experience and attempting to parse the logic of someone whose worldview opposes yours.
So reality is cognitively expensive.
It is the most expensive thing our brains do. So when a digital platform offers to construct a perfectly tailored bubble around your consciousness, our brains gravitate toward that comfort.
A space where every complex issue is reduced to a simple binary, where your side is universally good and the other side is universally evil.
We surrender to the algorithm because it relieves the burden of critical thought. But knowledge only possesses actual value when it survives the stress test of diverse perspectives.
It has to be challenged.
The filter bubble doesn't just hide opposing views, it actively suppresses the human pursuit of objective truth, trading the messy reality of the world for the frictionless comfort of an algorithm.
And the moment you trade your tether to reality for the comfort of a frictionless bubble, you become incredibly vulnerable.
You really do. You are totally exposed.
That isolation establishes the perfect environment for the next phase of our digital reality. Because users are lulled into this false sense of absolute security, relaxing inside their perfectly tailored, intellectually sanitized filter bubbles, they become the ideal prey.
The profound isolation of the modern internet makes it an unparalleled hunting ground for digital predators.
The transition from psychological isolation to active exploitation is seamless. We are stepping into the dark arts of digital deception.
The language here is so incredibly vivid.
It is. The language we use to describe modern cybercrime relies heavily on manipulating our perception of reality. Let's start with a foundational, centuries-old idiom. When bad actors deceive someone, trick them, or actively hide the truth, we say they try to pull the wool over someone's eyes.
It's a deeply physical metaphor for a deeply invisible crime.
I am fascinated by the literal origin of this. It refers to the physical act of pulling a wool hat, or historically a heavy woolen wig, down completely over someone's face, physically blinding them so they cannot see the reality directly in front of them.
Literally blinding them.
The common example today is a scammer creating a fraudulent website that perfectly mimics your actual bank, fully pulling the wool over your eyes to steal your credentials.
The translation from physical blinding to digital fraud is incredibly precise.
What makes it so accurate for you?
What makes the physical analogy so accurate is the sudden disorienting nature of the blindness. If someone physically pulls a heavy wool cap over your eyes, you are instantly plunged into darkness. But you don't stop moving.
Right, you try to keep walking.
You continue to navigate your environment based on your memory and your assumptions of what the room looks like. Digital fraud exploits that exact same reliance on assumption.
Wow, okay. That's terrifying.
When you receive an email claiming to be from your bank and you click the link, the resulting website looks visually perfect. The corporate logo is identical, the hex codes of the colors match, the font is correct. Your digital vision, your screen, is telling you that you are standing in a safe, familiar room.
So your eyes are open, but the wool has already been pulled down.
You are functionally blind. You are typing your highly sensitive password into a complete void, entirely unaware that the digital architecture you are interacting with is a hollow fabrication designed to harvest your keystrokes.
And the specific methodology behind harvesting that data brings us to one of the most pervasive cybercrimes in existence, which is phishing. But we have to note the crucial spelling. It is spelled with a PH. Phishing.
The spelling distinguishes it as a cybercrime, but the pronunciation keeps the analogy perfectly intact.
It is defined as the practice of sending fraudulent communications, usually emails or text messages, that appear to come from a reputable, trusted source aiming to trick individuals into revealing personal data, like credit card numbers or passwords.
It's like getting a fake email from what looks like your company's HR department containing a malicious link.
Exactly. But leaning into the literal interpretation of phishing, out on the water with a net, reveals the terrifying mathematical scale of the scam. Scammers are casting a wide net into the digital ocean.
It reveals that the scammer doesn't actually care who you are. You are not a specific target.
Right. They're not hunting you. They're out on the vast, anonymous ocean of the internet, casting a massive, indiscriminate net, just dragging the depths to see what private data they can pull up to the surface.
That is the core mechanism of phishing. It relies on the law of large numbers. A scammer can deploy an automated script that sends out 10 million fraudulent emails in an hour.
10 million? That's just wild.
The email might say, your streaming account will be suspended in 24 hours if you do not update your billing information. The scammer is fully aware that 9.9 million people will either ignore it, recognize the scam, or have it caught by their spam filters.
The entire operation relies on finding that microscopic fraction of a percent of users who happen to be distracted, tired, or operating inside their comfortable filter bubble where they implicitly trust their inbox.
They bypass the user's logic by exploiting urgency and authority. The email creates a panic, like, "My account will be suspended," which overrides the critical thinking process that might notice the email address is slightly misspelled.
They are fishing for human distraction.
And that reliance on human vulnerability creates a bridge to the most devastating form of digital deception. Because phishing exploits our financial anxieties and our distraction. But the next concept exploits the absolute core of our human need for connection.
We were talking catfishing. This moves the crime from the financial sector directly into the emotional core of the user.
It's a completely different level of manipulation.
Catfishing is the act of creating a completely fabricated, fictitious identity on a social media platform or a dating app to trick someone into a deep romantic or emotional relationship.
Often the end goal is financial extortion, but sometimes the perpetrator does it purely for psychological manipulation and control.
Someone might spend a year believing they are engaged to a successful architect living in Paris, only to discover the entire persona was engineered by a scammer on another continent.
This raises an incredibly important question about the fragility of modern trust and the unique psychological damage inflicted by the digital landscape.
The psychological damage is the critical element here. When we discuss pulling the wool over someone's eyes with a fake banking portal, the consequence is a stolen password and drained funds.
It is a terrible, stressful event.
But the damage is quantifiable and contained.
Exactly. The banking system has infrastructure to deal with it. You report the fraud, the bank freezes the account, they investigate, and often the money is insured and restored. There is a rigid protocol for a stolen credit card.
But society has no protocol for a stolen reality.
You literally can't report it. And that is why catfishing is such a profound violation. It isn't just a financial crime, it is the total weaponization of intimacy.
It's heartbreaking.
Imagine the vulnerability required to open your heart to someone, to spend hundreds of hours exchanging intimate messages, planning a future, sharing your deepest insecurities, only to have the veil lifted and realize the human being you loved literally never existed.
It doesn't just break your heart, it fractures your fundamental ability to trust your own perception of reality.
It proves that the anonymous nature of the internet can be used to construct a flawless, emotionally devastating trap.
It is the ultimate manifestation of pulling the wool over someone's eyes, applied directly to the human soul. And the sheer terror of navigating an environment where this level of sustained, invisible deception is possible forces us to confront our own permanence in this space.
Because every single action leaves a mark.
Right. Every interaction, every click, every message we send, while navigating these echo chambers and dodging these digital predators, leaves a mark. Which brings us to a vital concept for survival, understanding our digital footprint.
It is the permanent ledger of our existence in the digital realm.
A digital footprint is the permanent, expanding trail of data left behind by every single website you visit, every photo you upload, every comment you leave on a forum, and every geographic location your phone pings.
It tracks absolutely everything.
The classic cautionary tale is the employer who scans a candidate's digital footprint and discovers a highly offensive post from 10 years ago, ruining their career prospects.
Or the chilling realization that deleting a photo from your social media profile does absolutely nothing to erase it from the underlying data structures of the internet.
But the linguistic contrast here is what I find so haunting. Look at the literal origin of the phrase, right? A physical footprint pressed into the sand on a beach.
The disparity between the physical metaphor and the digital reality is staggering.
When you walk barefoot along the edge of the ocean, your physical footprint is the very definition of temporary. It is the most ephemeral mark a human being can make. The wind shifts, the tide rolls in, the water washes over the sand, and within hours, your footprint is entirely erased by the natural world.
It vanishes as if you were never there.
But the digital footprint operates in direct defiance of the natural world. The digital environment is utterly unforgiving, and its memory is practically infinite.
Every search query you type in the middle of the night, every impulsive comment you leave on a viral video, every micro-interaction is logged.
It's all recorded.
It is instantly transmitted to massive, climate-controlled data centers, written onto hard drives, backed up on redundant servers across the globe, and monetized by algorithms.
We treat our online actions as if we are casually walking along a sandy beach, when in reality, we are meticulously carving our daily habits, our flaws, and our secrets into digital stone.
And that stone will outlive us.
That is a terrifying thought.
The permanence of the digital footprint fundamentally alters what it means to make a mistake. Historically, human errors, embarrassing moments, or bad opinions faded with time and human memory. The internet eradicates the grace of forgetting.
Your digital footprint anchors you permanently to every version of yourself you have ever been online.
It's an incredibly heavy burden to carry, knowing that invisible ledger is constantly expanding.
But that idea, the fact that this invisible data relies on massive, climate-controlled data centers and hard drives, creates the perfect transition to the final reality of our deep dive.
We finally hit the physical layer.
Yes. Up to this point, we have been existing entirely in the abstract. We've talked about the psychological isolation of algorithms, the emotional devastation of invisible scammers, and the ethereal permanence of data.
But none of this invisible magic exists without a very harsh, very fragile physical infrastructure.
The glass, the silicon chips, the lithium-ion batteries, the miles of copper wire. And the ultimate truth of the physical world is that eventually, everything decays. The hardware physically breaks down.
And when the invisible cloud crashes back into physical reality, the language we use changes its tone entirely.
We are forced to confront the mechanical limitations of our devices.
Right. And the language becomes wonderfully informal and highly visual.
When a machine starts acting strangely, it's freezing up, making bizarre grinding noises, and failing intermittently, we say the machine is on the blink.
On the blink, yeah.
You might have an office printer that jams every third page, or a laptop screen that flickers, and you say it's been on the blink all week. The literal origin here is so simple, but it evokes such a specific feeling. It refers to a literal light bulb blinking on and off, sputtering in its fixture, right before the filament finally snaps, and it dies in total darkness.
It perfectly captures the anxiety of intermittent failure. When a device is on the blink, it hasn't completely abandoned you yet.
It's still hanging on.
It is still trying to function, offering these desperate sputtering bursts of utility, but, the darkness is inevitable.
But the anxiety peaks with the next phrase. If a machine has aged past its usefulness and is on the absolute verge of permanent total failure, we don't just say it's old. We say it is on its last legs.
On its last legs.
You look at a 5-year-old smartphone whose battery drains from full to dead in 45 minutes, and you declare it's on its last legs. So what does this all mean?
It's such a weird thing to say about a phone.
If we trace the literal origin, we are comparing a dying piece of advanced consumer electronics to an exhausted, elderly horse that can barely stand up under its own weight anymore.
I find the profound irony here almost beautiful.
We are talking about cold, manufactured rectangles of metal and glass. They are assembled by robotic arms in sterile factories. They have no pulse. Yet the moment they begin to fail us, we instinctively project living biological traits onto them.
We say the phone had legs. We complain that the battery is tired.
When the screen goes black, we don't say the servant broke. We say the computer died. We compulsively anthropomorphize our silicon.
It's a fascinating psychological reflex. Why do we insist on breathing linguistic life into inanimate objects? Because at our core, humans are biological creatures, and our primary framework for understanding the passage of time is the biological life cycle.
Birth, aging, fatigue, and eventual death.
Exactly. We interact with our smartphones more intimately and more frequently than we interact with most humans. It is the first thing we touch in the morning and the last thing we look at before we sleep.
It's an extension of our own bodies.
Right. Because it feels like an appendage, we intuitively map the trajectory of a living organism onto its life cycle. When that lithium-ion battery degrades and fails to hold a charge, mapping it to the tragic lethargy of an old workhorse that can no longer carry its rider makes the failure emotionally legible to us.
It softens the cold mathematical reality of chemical degradation by framing it as a natural biological inevitability.
It actually generates a weird sense of empathy. You find yourself feeling genuinely sorry for the phone. Like, poor thing, it's just on its last legs, it's trying its best.
We forgive the machine by pretending it's an animal.
But the empathy vanishes when the failure isn't the slow, tired decline.
Oh, totally. Because sometimes the physical failure of the digital world is completely sudden, violent, and catastrophic. And that brings us to the final linguistic concept in our journey, the idiom to throw a spanner in the works. Or, as it's commonly phrased in American English, to throw a wrench in the works.
A phrase dripping with industrial consequence.
It is used to describe an event, like a sudden software glitch, a severed cable, or a massive server crash that unexpectedly and violently prevents a system or a plan from succeeding. If a global payment processing network suddenly goes offline on the biggest shopping day of the year, that outage throws a massive wrench in the works of the global economy.
The scale of the disruption is total.
But analyzing the literal origin of this phrase strips away all the modern gloss of the internet. It asks us to visualize a massive, deafening industrial-era factory. Giant heavy metal gears are turning smoothly, driving an enormous machine.
And then someone takes a solid iron wrench, a spanner, and throws it directly into the teeth of those moving gears.
The metal screeches, the teeth shatter, and the entire massive machine violently, destructively grinds to a complete halt.
And that brutal industrial imagery serves as the perfect synthesis for our entire discussion. We spend our lives wrapped in language that elevates the internet into something magical. We talk about uploading our lives to the cloud, we connect to wireless networks, we navigate a digital landscape.
This terminology is designed to make the internet feel ethereal, invisible, and immune to the constraints of the physical world.
It makes it feel like it exists floating above us in the atmosphere.
But throwing a wrench in the works shatters that illusion and exposes the underlying mechanical truth. The internet is not a cloud.
No, it's really not.
The digital world is, at its core, simply the largest, most complex physical factory ever constructed by human hands. It is millions of miles of fragile fiber optic cables running along the crushing depths of the ocean floor.
It is cavernous, concrete data centers sitting in the desert, consuming millions of gallons of water just to keep the servers from melting.
It is billions of microscopic silicon logic gates inside your devices, opening and closing millions of times a second. It is an endless factory of physical gears.
Just microscopic gears operating at the speed of light.
But they are physical, and therefore they are fragile. No matter how advanced our algorithms become, no matter how perfectly tailored our filter bubbles are, or how quickly our viral trends spread, the entire illusion remains bound by the ruthless laws of physics.
One overheating server rack, one severed underwater cable, one critical line of corrupted code, one heavy wrench, is all it takes to bring the ethereal magic of our modern lives crashing to a violent halt.
It reminds us that our digital utopia is always just one mechanical failure away from darkness.
What an incredibly grounding realization.
And what an absolute journey we have taken today, mapping out the architecture of this reality. We started by examining the sheer explosive momentum of the digital ecosystem, watching how content bypasses our defenses to go viral, and how relentless trends take the internet by storm.
We charted the spread of the cultural pathogen.
From the battlefield, we descended into the dark, meticulously engineered psychological traps of the network. We explored how algorithmic echo chambers deafen us with our own amplified voices, and how personalized filter bubbles lull us into a state of comfortable, dangerous ignorance.
A deliberate architecture of isolation.
And we saw how that isolation breeds vulnerability, dropping us into the predatory underworld of the internet where bad actors use phishing nets, and the emotional devastation of catfishing to pull the wool over our eyes, all while we permanently carve our digital footprints into the data centers of the world.
The weaponization of our innate need for trust.
Finally, we crash violently back into the constraints of the physical world, confronting the reality of aging hardware that goes on the blink, the empathy we feel for devices on their last legs, and the sheer fragility of a system that can be entirely brought down by throwing a single wrench in the works.
It is a comprehensive map of the human experience in the 21st century, hidden entirely in plain sight within the phrases we use every day. But observing the map is only the first step.
Right. True understanding requires applying this awareness to how you actively navigate the space, which means it is time to turn the lens directly onto your own digital life. Think critically about the architecture of the feeds you scroll through today.
Ask yourself the hard questions.
Do you suspect you are currently trapped in an algorithmic echo chamber? When was the last time the algorithm served you an opinion that genuinely challenged your worldview? And more importantly, how do you actively force yourself to step outside of that comfortable ignorance?
And looking around your physical space, what piece of technology are you currently projecting your empathy onto because it's sputtering on its last legs?
We all have that one decaying device we are refusing to let go of.
I know I do.
I have a laptop fan that sounds like an industrial jet engine taking off every time I open a browser. It is fully on the blink. But as we sign off from this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final lingering paradox to turn over in your mind.
I love a parting provocation.
We have spent this time analyzing the language we use to navigate the absolute pinnacle of human technological achievement. We have built artificial intelligence, instantaneous global communication, and synthetic realities.
And yet,
Look at the vocabulary we instinctively reach for to describe it. We rely almost exclusively on the natural, organic, and physical world that we supposedly evolved past. We talk about biological viruses infecting our screens.
we talk about weather storms conquering our attention.
We use the imagery of casting nets to catch fish. We project the fatigue of old horses onto our batteries, and we worry about the physical footprints we leave in the sand.
We use the language of the earth to describe the cloud.
Why? As our digital world becomes increasingly synthetic, increasingly invisible, and increasingly detached from physical reality, why is it that the absolute only way the human mind can truly comprehend it is by tethering it to the biology, the weather, and the physical nature it was designed to replace?
A true, profound question to carry with you the next time you look at your screen.
Thank you so much for stepping through the looking glass with us today on this deep dive.
Keep questioning the architecture of your feeds and remain deeply curious about the reality behind the glass.
Mind the permanence of your digital footprint out there, and whatever you do, never let the algorithm pull the wool over your eyes. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.